What happens when the man accused of orchestrating freak-offs, hoarding baby oil by the gallon, and running a sex-fueled empire walks out of court like he just dropped a platinum album? You get a trial that says less about justice and more about who still runs the culture. This isn't just about Diddy's trial or verdict. It's a mirror held up to power, hip-hop, and a legal system that still asks survivors for the proof. The Me Too movement. When the verdict dropped, P. Diddy turned the courtroom into a full-on performance. Hands in prayer, a mouthed "thank you," and a victory fist pump like he just won a Grammy, not dodged life in prison. Outside the courthouse, it was a celebration straight out of a music video. Supporters, yes, including Kanye West, poured baby oil on themselves and chanted, "It's not Rico, it's Frico," as if the trial was just another headline in a rap beef. But the celebration was about something darker, the erasure of accountability. The jury found Combs not guilty of the most serious federal charges, racketeering and sex trafficking, but guilty of lesser ones, like transporting male sex workers across state lines. That technicality was seen as a win for Diddy, but for many, it marked a huge step back for survivors and the movement that once promised justice. This wasn't just a courtroom win. It felt like a cultural statement. The era where powerful men faced real consequences for abusing women? Yeah, that chapter seems to be closing, and closing pretty fast. We remember what Blake Lively's recent stint with Justin Baldoni and Amber Heard's allegations about Johnny Depp did to the Me Too campaign. Outside feminist circles, the pain of the women at the center of this trial barely registered. Instead, online trolls, influencers, and podcast bros treated the verdict like a victory parade. What we're witnessing isn't just apathy. It's enthusiasm for the old status quo, a dark celebration of male impunity dressed up in memes and mockery. If the Me Too movement sparked moral outrage, this moment smells of moral exhaustion, or worse, sadistic glee. Sure, part of the acquittal comes from an age-old legal hurdle, the complex, messy nature of abuse. Victims often text their abusers affectionate things, especially in manipulative relationships where power, money, and control blur the lines. The defense team jumped on this, turning private moments of weakness into courtroom weapons. They called the victims liars, gold diggers, and worse. And the jury? They bought it. Cassie Ventura and Jane stood in court, shared deeply traumatic stories, and were grilled, doubted, and publicly dissected. Videos of them were played, their bruises shown, and their pain was put on display. Yet after all that, the verdict favored the man they say abused them. The message is clear. If you're rich, powerful, and famous enough, even baby oil-soaked debauchery can get a standing ovation. What does it mean for male sovereignty? Beyond the courtroom, this verdict echoes something even deeper, something rooted in the DNA of hip-hop culture, male sovereignty, the kind that shields powerful men from real consequences, no matter how disturbing the allegations. Despite the raw, emotional testimonies, the jury let Diddy walk on the most damning charges, racketeering and sex trafficking by force. It made one thing clear. In hip-hop's inner circles, the old power structures are alive and well. The system still bends for men who've built empires off swagger, dominance, and cultural capital. This isn't new. Hip-hop has long glorified hypermasculinity, aggression, control, sexual prowess as a markers of success. On stage, it sells records. Off stage, when those same actions cross the line into abuse, the consequences are softer, the scrutiny blurrier. In Diddy's case, the two-man act convictions feel more like a legal slap on the wrist than a reckoning. And that's exactly where the idea of hip-hop sovereignty, that the culture defines its own rules and resists outside judgment, starts to unravel. Because if those rules allow the most influential men to exploit and silence women, what kind of sovereignty is that? If no one in power gets held accountable, then maybe the game isn't just rigged, it's sacredly protected, which in itself is a huge dilemma. Ultimately, the Diddy verdict highlights a clash between male sovereignty, entrenched power structures that shield men from full accountability, and hip-hop sovereignty, the culture's aspirational claim to self-governance and ethical integrity. Until hip-hop confronts its own gender double standards, its sovereignty will ring hollow to those who call for a more just and inclusive culture. And before we move on, let's break down exactly what the jury said, because the verdict sheet read was twisted. Count 1. Racketeering conspiracy, not guilty. Count 2. Sex trafficking by force, Cassie, not guilty. Count 3. Transportation to engage in prostitution, Cassie, guilty. Count 4. Sex trafficking by force, Jane, not guilty. Count 5. Transportation for prostitution, Jane, guilty. So let's get this straight. No to trafficking, yes to pimping, only in America. Sean Diddy Combs walked out with a win where it counted, dodging the life sentence level charges and landing 2 guilty verdicts on lesser counts under the Mann Act, a dusty old law originally passed in 1910 to stop human trafficking, and now used to slap celebrities on the wrist. It's like being charged with speeding after a high-speed chase involving stolen diamonds. Technically guilty, but let's be real, he's going home. Prosecutors painted Combs as a mob boss in designer shades, running a sex trafficking empire behind the smokescreen of his entertainment label. They said these weren't just wild parties. They were freak-offs. Yes, that's what they were called, where women were allegedly drugged, manipulated, and assaulted, while Diddy played ringmaster. Over 34 witnesses took the stand, former assistants, sex workers, and cops. And the stories? Haunting. But here's the twist. Federal racketeering laws are built like a brick wall. You need concrete evidence, texts, money trails, witness coordination. And in this case, despite all the smoke, the prosecution just couldn't produce the legal fire. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal avengers, Mark and Tini Geragos, came in swinging. They said, look, is the guy messy? Yes. Are the relationships toxic? Sure. But that's not illegal. Their argument was simple. Don't turn courtroom morality into a culture war. And yes, maybe the jury bought it. 'Cause after 13 hours of deliberation, they gave their answer. Not guilty on the big ones. And just guilty enough to say, we saw something, but not enough to take the man down. So here we are. Diddy walks. 2 convictions, no jail time yet, and 1 question left echoing through the culture. What does justice even look like when fame is your shield and money is your sword? The acquittal. So what did this high-profile courtroom circus actually lead to? 2 guilty verdicts, 3 acquittals, and a whole lot of baby oil left unaccounted for. That's right, Sean Diddy Combs was convicted on 2 counts of transporting women for prostitution, including Cassie Ventura and another woman referred to only as Jane. But when it came to the heaviest charges, the ones that screamed organized crime boss, Combs walked. So basically the jury said, you're nasty, but you're not mafia nasty. The racketeering charge was the big swing, the one that could have put him away for life. Prosecutors tried to frame Combs as a hip-hop kingpin running a criminal sex ring through his inner circle. They painted vivid scenes of prolonged, coerced sex acts, freak-offs. And let's not forget the LA mansion raid, where investigators found drugs and more than 1,000 bottles of baby oil. That wasn't a party kit. Man! But here's where things unraveled. The prosecution needed to prove that Combs didn't act alone. that at least one other person was knowingly part of a coordinated, years-long crime ring. But when cross-examined, Cassie herself said she didn't think Combs' staff were even present during the freak-offs. That gave the defense all they needed. Diddy's lawyers clapped back. If no one else knew, they argued, how could this be a conspiracy? One of his attorneys, Mark Agnifilo, basically laughed the charge out of the courtroom. Are you kidding me? Did any witness say, yes, I was part of a racketeering enterprise? Mic drop, objection overruled, and legal experts weren't surprised. Robert Mintz, a former federal prosecutor, told the BBC that racketeering cases are usually built for taking down mob bosses and drug lords, not rap moguls with private chefs and Grammy awards. The bar for conviction? Sky high. So yeah, the jury hesitated. While the stories were horrifying and straight up sinister, the legal dots just didn't connect enough. That's the problem with using RICO laws in cases like this. If you don't have hard evidence of coordination, you're building a skyscraper on the sand. And so, despite a mountain of disturbing testimony, viral surveillance footage, and one of the most damning raid inventories in celebrity history, Combs walked away mostly clean. Well, not clean, but let's just say, he didn't get the sentence many thought he deserved. We've heard the stories, we've seen the evidence, but in a world where fame can rewrite the narrative and money can muffle the truth, do we still believe that telling the truth is enough to change it? Let us know what you think. Drop your thoughts in the comments.